I'm in Shenandoah National Park in the Southern District. This is mile marker 76, and this is 2 Mile Run Overlook. There's a view to the west. Take a look. That mountain off in the distance with the real sharp tip to it is the southern tip of the Massanutten Mountain Range. And over there is our Rocky Mount. I already hiked that. Actually today I'm going over there close to the summit, and then I'm gonna head to the north just a little bit, or maybe it's the east, and hike down to Gap Run. This is Skyline Drive, looking to the north. There's my little red car. Skyline Drive heading south. So I'm going to close up my car, and I got to hike down here around this bend just a little ways until I get to the Rocky Mount trailhead. The elevation here is 2775. One-tenth of a mile into my hike, and here's the Rocky Mount trailhead. We got a friendly deer grazing here, and up there around the bend is where my car is parked at 2 Mile Run Overlook. So I'm going to leave the deer there to her own devices and head on up this way along the Rocky Mount Trail. Four-tenths of a mile into my hike, I'm down to 2560. I've been descending steadily, and this area, I thought I'd take a look at these trees. All the trees in this area, starting up at Skyline Drive, are completely dead, burnt to a crisp. They got burned in the Rocky Mount fire. That was like last year or the year before in this whole area. And before the fire, none of this undergrowth that you see was here. And now that the trees are dead, the sunlight's shining down to the ground level, and it's all this undergrowth is sprung up, and it's probably 4 feet, 5 feet tall now. That's the way I came. The trail itself is got a whole lot of tall grassy growth on it, which is perfect for ticks to get on you. So I'm going to have to watch that. Rocky Mount summit's over that way. Gap runs down this way, which is where we're headed. So I just thought I'd point this out. These trees, I thought they might come back, but they're totally gone. Look. it's going to be decades before this area gets covered with trees again. All caused by a careless fire. I think 10,000 acres burned. Six-tenths of a mile into my hike. I'm down to 2450, continuing to descend. And I've hiked through now. I've hiked through the area of the worst burn, and now I'm back into a more typical environment here under a tree canopy. And so if you take a look at the undergrowth here, look. So this is a more typical undergrowth that you would see here under a tree canopy. Up there is where I just came from. Actually, up there you can see where the sunlight comes through, but here, from here on, it's probably going to be just a normal area, relatively unburnt. So here's the kind of a ground cover you get under a tree canopy here. Really pretty minimal. So I'm going to continue to descend. Eventually we're going to get to a turnoff. If you continue straight, you go to the summit of Rocky Mount, and I've done that in a prior hike, but we're going to turn right and head and continue to descend until we get down to a Gap Run. One mile into my hike, I'm down to 2390, and even this far in, there's still a significant number of dead trees. Like right down in there, you can see all the dead trees. And if you look up there at that summit, you'll see that the right portion of it is green, but the middle and left portions are brown, burned out, dead trees up there. A hell of a lot of stuff got burnt up out here. Wow. This is the way I'm headed. Keep on trucking. .2 miles into my hike. I'm down below 2,000 feet elevation now. Let's see, I'm down to 1,980 feet. And there is the summit of Rocky Mount. I've already done that hike, and you can find that on my YouTube channel. When I get down here just a little bit further, we're gonna instead of continuing straight up to the summit, we're gonna turn to the right and continue descending down to Gap Run. There's where I came from. It's been a pretty steady descent the whole way. So let me get on down here to the turnoff, and I'll do a short video when I get down there. .3 miles into my hike, I'm down to 1,900 feet elevation, and this is the turnoff. That's where I came from, and if you just continue straight past this marker, you start to ascend up to the summit of Rocky Mount. Like I said, I've already done that hike, and I have a video of it on my YouTube channel. So we're going to turn to the right, and this is Gap Run Trail. And my plan, I don't know if I'm going all the way down to the lowest elevation, or maybe if I find a nice place along Gap Run to throw up my hammock, I'll just stop wherever I find it. So I haven't hiked this before. And according to this sign and according to my map, if you go this way in a big loop down to Gap Run and around the back side of this mountain, Rocky Mount here, way back there somewhere, it turns back into the Rocky Mount Trail, and it comes on around, and you'll come up over the summit and right back down here. So this is one big giant loop here. But I'm not going all the way around the loop since I've already done the summit, so let's go down here and see what we can find along Gap Run. .6 miles into my hike, I'm down to 1,610 feet elevation, and this is my first contact with Gap Run. There's where I came from. This section of the trail's pretty steep, and it crisscrosses a number of different little feeder streams that right now are dry. But once you get down to here, this looks like the main channel. So here's your headwaters for Gap Run right here. I marked it on my GPS. I'm going to continue on this way for a while because this doesn't look like a very convenient place to set up my hammock. So I'm going to continue on down here. I read somewhere down here a ways there's actually a campsite. Three miles into my hike, I'm down to 1,510 feet elevation, and here's my second crossing of Gap Run. You can see it's more substantial now that we're at a lower elevation. There's not a whole lot of flow right now, but it is flowing. Here's looking upstream. So there's plenty of water here if you need water. So I'm going to go ahead and cross Gap Run and continue on down this way, descending even further. .6 miles into my hike, I'm down to 1,370 feet elevation. And here's another crossing of Gap Run. There's a pool up that way. Maybe you can hear it. Looking up there, I see more burned out trees. So I'm going to go ahead and cross here and keep on going down until I find this campsite, hopefully. .9 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 1,350, and this signpost here is at the edge of the park boundary. This is where I came from, down Gap Run Trail, and to stay on Gap Run Trail, when you get to this marker, you just turn left, and The trail now you can see is an old, some old road. Now going to the right, that's up on private property, so don't go that way. You'll see a national park boundary marker there with red blazing, and there's a park boundary there with blazing, red blazing. So continuing down this way keeps you inside the park. According to hikingupward.com, in 4/10 of a mile down here, there's a supposed to be a camping site. So I think I'm going to go ahead and head on down there and set up camp there. Let's see if we can find it. One more thing I'll point out. There's the marker in the turn. You turn to the left. There's a tree with the red blazing showing the park boundary. And actually right here is one of those old style concrete posts sitting in the ground, and the remains of some steel cable. And let's see, over here on this side I don't see anything, but there would have been something over there to chain that across. So there's the old chain across the road, and I don't know, they don't bother with it anymore, probably because to get here in a vehicle you'd have to trespass on somebody's property that way, so nobody comes down here anymore. But once upon a time it was chained off right there. So we're going to head on down this way. .7 miles into my hike, and this is as far as I'm going. This is where Gap Run ends, and that signpost there says if you continue on around to the left and you cross Gap Run, and then that becomes Rocky Mount Trail, and you continue your big loop up and takes you up to the summit of Rocky Mount. So I'm going to turn around and head back the way I came. There's supposed to be a campsite along this trail. I never did see one, so I'm going to head back. And it's about 11:30, so I'm going to head back for a ways, and then if I don't find it on the way back, then I'm just going to make my own campsite. .2 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 1250. There's Gap Run. There's not much water running in it. I never did find a campsite that they said was a large campsite. So finally, the trail is over there, just a short distance. And using the mileage and stuff that they gave, I never was able to find the supposedly campsite around here. So I bushwhacked my way over here to Gap Run, and I found a spot that I think will work between this great big large tree and that one that my day pack's hanging on. Excuse me. So I'm gonna set my hammock up here. It's in the shade. It's cool here, and it's almost noon, so I can get some lunch and relax a little bit. Okay, there's my hammock set up for lunch here. Got my pack hanging off that tree over there, and I used just 2 sections of mule tape, and it's rated at 2,500 pounds. This section here is barely long enough to get around that big tree and give me a little bit of a free end there. So on this one, you know, it goes through the loop, 2,500 pound mule tape, and then that's a sheet bend. Now normally this free end here, I loop it. I put a loop instead of just pulling it through straight like that, but there wasn't enough. I didn't have enough length there to do that. So that's just a straight old sheet bend. That's going to be kind of hard to undo when I leave. And then you got your E&O hammock, And then on this end is the sheet bend with the loop instead, so I can just pull on this and it'll pop out. And then these are continuous loops of am steel. They call it am steel. It's a Dyneema fiber, synthetic fiber. So I'm gonna turn this off and get in the hammock a little bit, have some lunch, and relax. Okay, well, I ate some lunch. I'm in the hammock. I'm just using it as a chair. I am not actually laying down in it, just kind of sitting here with my feet up, eating lunch. This place didn't have a convenience table for me to eat off of, like a big rock or anything, so I just prepared stuff in my knees. So over there is the trail. I'm in a stand of pine trees here. So there's my stuff hanging from the tree. Trail's up that way. This is all pretty flat in through here. Never did find their supposedly huge campsite. Although I do notice that there on the bank there, where it's sunny, there's a section of a tree that looks like it was cut with a chainsaw. Now, how'd that get in there? That's kind of interesting. Maybe the campsite is around here somewhere and it's just totally overgrown. Here's the other end of my hammock. Gap run is down in through there. So it's a nice quiet little area down in here. This is pretty far away from Skyline Drive. This is actually near the edge of the park boundary, and this is probably, at least 4 miles. 4 trail miles at least back to my car. And a huge amount of elevation. I've got a long climb ahead of me, so it's about 12:30. Instead of laying here and goofing off too much, I think I'm gonna finish my water and pack up my stuff and start heading back. That way I can take it nice and slow and rest along the way. So let me finish my water, get my stuff packed up here, and I'll start heading back up the trail. And if I see anything that looks a little different than it did on the way down, I'll get some pictures of it. Oh yeah, one more thing before I pack up my stuff. I brought a different pistol this time, so I thought I'd show you this, if it'll focus. This is the, let me take it out of the little case there. This is a Ruger LC9. It's a compact 9mm pistol. Pretty nice, fairly lightweight. Holds 7 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, 8 total. It's a little bit like a Glock in that there's no safety, which is a little scary. No safety on this pistol or Glock. I think they might make a version of it that does have a safety, but this one doesn't. So you just have to be careful, keep your finger off the trigger. But nice pistol. .1 miles into my hike. Just finished crossing Gap Run for the final time. That's where I came from. Gap Run is right down there. The elevation here is 1,640 feet. And there's a bunch of logs here where they they cut some up that were blown across the trail. I'm sitting on one here. And I'm drinking some water, and I'm going to continue on up this way now. The next half a mile is pretty steep. It's about from here up to get me back up on the saddle of the mountain. It's about 300 or 400 foot climb from here in less than a half mile. So I'm going to, this part's pretty steep. So I'm going to sit here and drink some water, and then I'm going to see if I can get myself back up on the saddle of the mountain. 7.4 miles into my hike. I'm up to 1,915 feet, and I'm back to the saddle, where Gap Run Trail meets the Rocky Mount Trail. That's where I came from. Up that way is the summit of Rocky Mount, and I'm going to head up this way. That last section was pretty steep. Hopefully, well, let's see. I think I've got 2 more ascents to do before I get all the way up to Skyline Drive. I'm at 1900, and I got to go to 27 something, so 800 more feet. .7 miles into my hike. I'm up to 2,090 feet elevation, and just sitting here along the trail on this tree, drinking some more water. Woo-wee! Some climb. That's the way I'm headed, back up that way. I looked at my GPS. It's about it's about 1.3 miles back up to my car, but that's straight line distance. So probably more like 2 trail miles. Plus I got to get up to 2,700 feet. .8 miles into my hike. The elevation is here 2,400 feet. There's where I came from. Let me take a look around, do a little pan here. Real nice day. Long hike though, and a lot of elevation changes. Woo-wee! Special for old Uncle Clark. Good grief. That's where I'm going to go to get back to Skyline Drive. And if I can get my camera to refocus on this, I want to show you that. That's a tree that's burnt on one side from the Rocky Mount fire, and on this side, it's not too bad. And the side that's not burnt, too bad, it's got needles on it. Yeah, but this side over here is like totally dead. So it's like half dead, half alive. This is a map of today's hike. The quadrangle name is McGaheysville 1999, and I hiked on Rocky Mount Trail and Gap Run Trail. This red line here is Skyline Drive. This is coming down from the north, heading south on Skyline Drive. You come down to this bend in the road. Mile marker 76 is right here. You come around the bend and the overlook is right here. Okay, so you park here and then you turn around and you hike back north until you get to the trailhead here. Now there's a little bit of parking right here in the grass for the trailhead, but I prefer to just go ahead and park in the overlooks if they're reasonably close. This is just a few hundred yards back this way. So you get on the trailhead, and this is Rocky Mount Trail. Now most of this hike from here up here where I stopped hiking is almost all downhill, going north, and then coming back it's all uphill. So anyway, you start out on this Rocky Mount Trail. Now the first 3, 4, 5/10 of a mile of this trail is, you'll see over here to the west a whole lot of burned up trees. This whole area was involved in a huge, like 10,000 acre fire last year or the year before. So there's a lot of damage to trees and stuff in this area. Eventually though, you'll hike through it, the worst of it anyway, and you'll be under a tree canopy, and it'll be more of a normal hike. So you just continue hiking north until you get to right here. Now when you get to right here, there's a concrete signpost there, and if you go, well, it's basically kind of like straight ahead here actually. If you go straight ahead, then that takes you up to the summit, Rocky Mount summit. Now I did that either earlier this year or last year, and that's on my YouTube channel. So if you want to see what that looks like, you can look for the Rocky Mount hike. And so what I did this time was, instead of doing that, I turned to the right, and this is a real steep descent here until you get down, I don't know, to about here or so. And this is Gap Run Trail. And so basically, now when you get to here, you hit the park boundary. And if you go to the right up this road, this is an old road, this is private property, so don't go to the right. Instead, you go to the left. There's a concrete signpost here, though. You can read the metal bands, and it'll direct you to the left, which keeps you just inside the park boundary. And then I followed this trail all the way down eventually it meets up with Rocky Mount Trail down here somewhere. It's actually off the map. But I hiked it all the way down to there, to where these two trails come together. And there's a signpost here that lets you know that you are switching from Gap Run Trail back to Rocky Mount. And then of course if you follow that, you come up a real steep ascent here, back up to the summit this way, and back around where you came from. So I hiked it to here. I was looking for a campsite along here somewhere that I never did find. So eventually I just bushwhacked over from the trail over to Gap Run and just set up my own little campsite. I'll show the exact location of my campsite on my GPS track on Google Earth. I think actually where I set up my camp is probably too far north to be on this map. It'd be up here somewhere. But anyway, Gap Run, it kind of surprised me. I thought there would be more water running in it than there was. It was fairly dry today. So then turn around and hiked back. Now this is, for me, this is a pretty wicked to hike. Especially this section from here up to about here is really steep. And then even all through here, it really, the whole thing is just one long ascent. Back to Skyline Drive and back to my car right here. I unloaded my GPS onto my computer. It clocked out at 9.8 miles, 6 hours and 25 minutes, which includes about a half an hour of resting and eating lunch, and total ascent 1,887 feet. So that's more ascent and more mileage than most of the hikes I've been showing here on YouTube. But this is a nice hike. Some people, what they'll do is they'll start here and they'll come to here and then they'll go all the way around in the loop and just do it all in one hike. But, you know, to tell you the truth, that's a little too much hiking and a little too much ascent for me. But if you go on to hikingupwards.com or someplace like that and look up the Rocky Mount hike, they'll give you the stats for, you know, how far this is. But it's going to be probably 12, 13 miles and maybe 2,500 feet of ascent. So it's going to be pretty wicked. And that was the hike for today.